Fury of Hellfire was released 7 years ago on June 23, 2015. And this is something that I kind of wanted to talk about. This is wild. And Fury of Hellfire is an important patch for me. It'll always have a special place in my heart. Fury of Hellfire 6.2. Because it is not just the patch that I started raiding properly for the first time, but it's also the patch where I started making YouTube videos. So this will always be a patch that is very, very dear to my heart. And I wish to go down memory lane with you a little bit here. I started playing in Wrath of the Lich King, in the first patch of Wrath of the Lich King. So literally like 3.0 point whatever. I'm a Wrath baby. Yeah, I'm a Wrath baby. I've only been playing this game for 14 years. I'm just a wet behind the ears noob. I'm lucky I even know what buttons to press. I've only been playing this game 14 years. What a loser, I know. How can I even know what I'm talking about on the videos? I started playing when I was living in America. And I had a US account, right? I had an NA account, which meant that I basically couldn't raid because it just didn't match up. People raid in the evening generally. Plus the fact that I never quite got to max level that first kind of time I ever played. Like most people, I didn't reach max level in the first expansion that I played in. Certainly didn't reach max level in Wrath. I think I might have sailed into Howling Fjords with like a week of Wrath left. Something like that. And I was like blown away. I was like, this is amazing. Great. So that was not max level at the time, obviously, because I just hit, like, I was 10 levels behind max level at that point. And Kata started, and I was a professional actor at the time. I was doing a lot of plays. When Kata launched, I was doing a play. I was doing a pantomime dressed in drag. For children. With a very famous person in this country called Cilla Black, who was the highest selling female recording artist of the 60s. Good friends with the Beatles. We want pictures? I'm glad you asked. Let me find a picture of me. Now, for those of you who don't know, pantomime in this country is a great tradition from Victorian times. Kids shows at Christmas, basically, but also with rude kind of adult jokes in them as well. But essentially, you know, they're retellings of Cinderella, Snow White, fairy tales and shit, right? But traditionally, there is at least one drag artist in these shows. And the joke for Widow Twanky, who is the most common drag artist in these shows, the joke is that they're very specifically a man dressed as a woman. But that's slightly different for Cinderella and the Ugly Sisters, because there are two of them, and the joke with the Ugly Sisters is you never make jokes about them being men dressed as women. Like, they are just ugly women. So here is me in Cinderella in Aylesbury. This is what I looked like. And it was hard, man, because when you're doing panto, you do 2 shows a day and you have a costume change every single scene. So this was just my first costume. And every time I was on stage, I was on a different costume. So this is why, like, all this conversation about, like, drag artists for kids and stuff, and drag artists going to schools and stuff in America, and this whole culture war thing happening about it, everyone in the UK is like, what's the problem? What's the issue? I don't understand. I actually don't get it. What is like drag artists for kids weird? I don't know. I'd never done anything like this before. I was in a Shakespeare play that summer, and the guy who was playing one of the leads in that ran a panto company and was like, "Do you want to do an ugly sister? I think you'd be a great ugly sister." I was like, "Yeah, awesome, cool." And Cilla Black was in that show. And I remember Cilla Black, she's from Liverpool famously, but people love Cilla Black. She'd have like hundreds of people outside the theatre every single day waiting for her autograph. It's like uber famous still. She was getting paid like £10,000 a week, something like that. Which, okay, streamer and YouTube money is nothing, right? But for an actor, that's quite a lot. She was very nice, she was fine, but she used to do a speech at the end of every show. She was playing the fairy godmother, and she lived in Aylesbury, and that's why she was doing it. She didn't have to travel very far. And she'd do a big speech at the end, and people would give her a round of applause and be brilliant. We'd all be standing on stage like, yeah, great. We'd have to like lead her down the stairs, me and the other ugly sister, Chris, because she'd be drunk. So part of her rider was a bottle of champagne per show. There'd always be a new bottle of champagne at the beginning of every show in her dressing room, and she'd fucking drink that champagne. And there were 2 shows a day, and like she was in high heels, so we'd have to give her like a little hand down the stairs, right? And on the last night of the show, she gave this big speech, and she stepped forward and she was like, "Hey Chucks, thanks for coming to the show. It's lovely that you're here. I want to tell you all, this is actually the last play I'm ever gonna do. I'm retiring from live theatre. I haven't told anyone this, but I'm retiring, and this is my last performance on a stage." She died like a year afterwards. She's like, "This is my last performance on the stage." And everyone was like crying in the audience. We were crying on stage. She's like, "And I'm just really glad that you were here to share it with me tonight. Thank you for being such a great audience. And goodbye, Chucks." And like standing ovations, people were like, oh my god, tears everywhere. Like the crew were like, holy shit, crying and stuff. Like the curtain came down, and obviously I'm standing next to her, right, because I was leading her down the stairs. Curtain comes down, and as the curtain comes down, she turns to me and she says, "I won't be crying tomorrow when I'm in fucking Barbados." Fucking queen. Shall I tell you one of my favorite jokes in this show? We get to the great ball scene, okay? Cinderella, right? You will go to the ball. We've arrived at the ball. We've stolen Cinderella's ticket and ripped it up. We're going to the ball, and we come in. There's just been a big dance number at the beginning of the second act. You know, really nice set and everything. Like loads of money spent on these shows because they're the most popular shows in the country. You know. And we come walking in, huge theatre, like 1,500 seat theatre, like amazing. And we come in, and I go, "Oh, I swear the prince's balls get bigger every year." And my ugly sister says, "Oh, I know. I wish I had the money to hold them." It's a good line. That's not my favourite joke in the show, by the way. My favourite joke was just after that line, actually, when Baron Oldbucks or whatever he is, he comes up and he's like, welcomes us to the ball, and we go, "Oh, Baron, I like all your medals that you've got." He's wearing lots of medals, right? And he goes, "Oh, why thank you. I got these medals on the front ear. And I got these medals on the back ear." That was my favourite joke in the show. Fucking banger, that one. I love that one. Yeah, like it's all Leslie Nielsen shit, basically, is what it comes down to. Yeah, all Leslie Nielsen stuff. Oh wait, there was also another one. The canon of pantomimes is, you know, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Aladdin, but you've also got like more British ones like Dick Whittington, the first mayor of London, and he goes to London. Dick Whittington is a big pantomime, and you can guess the kind of jokes they have with Dick Whittington, right? Widow Twanky comes on and is like, "I can't find Dick anywhere, and I've been looking so hard. I've tried all the usual clubs." You know, shit like that. Oh, and Dick Whittington, Puss in Boots, his cat. I went to see a production of Aladdin, right? And Widow Twanky comes on. And, you know, everyone knows what the canon is, right? Everyone knows what the different shows are. Because, you know, you grow up with them in this country. And Widow Twanky comes on and she's like, "Dick! Dick! Dick! Where are you, Dick?" And her, like, little sidekick comes on and goes, "Widow Twanky, we're doing Aladdin." And she's like, "I know. Dick!" It's pretty, like, low-grade stuff. But no, there's no suggestion in this country that it's not suitable for kids, right? I took my desktop computer with me on the train to Aylesbury when I first went to Aylesbury to start staying there to rehearse this show. Like, big, square desktop computer screen, big tower, keyboard, like very, very long Ethernet cable to run it down to wherever the fucking internet box was in these digs that I was staying in. Didn't have a desk in my room where I was staying, but did have like a chest of drawers, which I could sit on the edge of the bed and put my computer like on the chest of drawers and play Cataclysm like this, just so I could play the launch of Cataclysm. About a couple of months into Cataclysm, I gave up on it. I didn't really love it, and I stopped playing. And I didn't start playing again until Mists of Pandaria, after I'd met Evitel. Because Evitel was still playing WoW when I met her. I was not playing. I hadn't played since Cataclysm. And we met in August 2012. For Christmas that year, she bought me a laptop. And the first thing I did on my laptop was install Mists of Pandaria, and she started a new character, recruit a friend, she wanted to mount, and we leveled up together, 300% leveling, XP boost. And, you know, it took us 2 months to level up after work every day, and I started doing LFR with her, and I was really into the idea of raiding in Mists of Pandaria. I really got into it. I really enjoyed LFR, and I was like, ooh, yeah, nice one. It was the first time I'd ever had like a max level character in WoW. So I was back in WoW, I was like, brilliant, I need to start raiding. But I was on an NA server. You probably don't remember that from the story. I was still on an NA character. Obviously, Evitel's character was on NA as well, because she started playing in America before she came to the UK. It's like super handy. I joined this guild, which in America, on NA servers, was a daytime guild. Which basically meant I still had to get up at like 1 AM to play with this guild, and I did. I was in a shared house. I'd get up, I'd go into the living room, Evie was sleeping in the bedroom, I'd set up my laptop, and I'd get my headphones on in the living room of this shared house, and I'd start raiding with this daytime guild. And it was people on military service, or on tour, I should say, in the US Army, and it was old people. And they were lovely. Like, I had no idea so many old people played WoW, even back then, but we're talking proper retired old people. And so, you know, we'd kind of like stumble through Mists of Pandaria raids until about 4 AM my time. It absolutely killed me. Oh, they loved me, by the way, in that guild. They loved my accent. Obviously, like the idea of a British person in their guild was like, ooh, Taliesin, say stuff. I was like, dude, I've got an American girlfriend. I have enough of this all day anyway. And I really enjoyed it and I had a great time. But I realized if I was going to actually raid at the kind of level that I wanted to, I was going to have to play on EU servers. So I just leveled my character to 60 on NA, and I decided to restart in EU. And for those of you who've never done this, you cannot transfer a character across region. So I could not transfer my account from NA to EU servers. You have to start from scratch, and you have nothing at all. I lost every mount, every transmog, everything I had ever had was gone. And I had to start again from scratch. And I leveled, and that character that I leveled again on EU is still my main today, Mavamwi. And once I got Mavamwi to 60, I was working on the buses by then. I was a tour guide by then, and I got a tour guiding job that actually paid quite well, like relatively. And I'd actually saved up to buy myself my first gaming PC. It was a shoebox PC, which had been an ex-display model, but it had like a real graphics card and a real processor and was designed to play games on. And dude, I could go into LFR High Maul and I could run that game at like 40 frames per second. And it was like butter melting across my screen. Because I'd only been playing on a shitty laptop, right? So like, my frames per second that I played with, like single, let alone when I went to an LFR or raid or something, if it hit 20 frames per second, I was like, oh, we are rolling here, dudes. Because usually I'd be running at about 14 frames per second. That's just what my laptop could do. So I got used to playing at that. When I got my proper gaming PC, my mind is blown. Not max level graphics, obviously, but, you know, toned down a bit, like 7 or something, but it's still incredible. And that made me confident that I was going to join a guild and do raiding properly. By the time I was in a position to actually apply to a guild, it was patch 6.2, Fury of Hellfire, right? And Hellfire as a patch had launched. And it's hard to remember, actually, if you weren't there and you don't remember, it's hard to remember how shit World of Warcraft was at that time. We've been through Shadowlands, we've been through BFA, the community in general hasn't loved those expansions, but unless you were there before 6.2 came out, unless you were there in WoD, and unless you remember all the drama about flying in WoD, and how that's all anyone talked about for a good solid year, because there's like nothing else to talk about, and how little there was to actually play in this game and how little there was to do. I remember thinking, like, genuinely, if transmog didn't exist, this game would be dead right now. Like, beyond content starved. There was no reason to run Mythic Dungeons in those days because you out-leveled them super quickly at max level. The raids were so old, everyone had done them, like, to death. There's nothing else to do. You couldn't fly in WoD, and like, Blizz said that you weren't ever going to be allowed to fly in WoD. And I remember I'd be going to work on the buses, the tour bus, the Duck, and I would be listening to The Instance. I started listening to, like, WoW content at this time, right? And watching WoW content on YouTube. So when I discovered Preach videos, I started watching Preach, and I discovered The Instance. I started listening to The Instance, and every episode of The Instance was about flying. There was always some discussion about how angry the community was about flying. And same with every other WoW podcast that I was listening to at the time. It's hard to imagine how down and upset the WoW community were in WoD. When you hear people say that it's worse now, it just proves that they weren't there, in my opinion. And 6.2 was like the first proper patch of that entire fucking expansion, honestly. And, you know, people were pretty happy with it. It wasn't a great patch, honestly, but it had a whole new zone, which was the first time they'd redone the whole kind of Timeless Isle thing. And it was fine. It was decent. The rep wasn't really good in it, but you needed it for flying. Oh my god, getting Pathfinder as well in WoD was a whole... Like, getting all the treasures for Pathfinder. Holy shit. And, I got to the stage where I was ready to apply to a guild to raid, but obviously I'd never really raided before, and I was dog shit at the game. So I went on to WoW Progress, and I searched for guilds who were doing normal heroic, and were looking for a discipline priest. First page of results came up, and I went, well, I won't be needing the first page, and I clicked onto the second page, and I went, I won't be needing the second page, and I clicked onto the third page, and that's when I started looking for guilds on the third page of WoW Progress for my server, who were recruiting for that raid. Because, you know, I didn't want to try and oversell myself, right? Well, I always liken it to, like, you know how when you go to a restaurant, right? No one ever buys the cheapest wine on a wine menu in a restaurant. No one wants to buy the cheapest wine, but they don't want to spend much money on it. So what they do is, and obviously restaurants know you do this, but you still do it, is you always buy the second cheapest bottle of wine. It's like, hey, I don't want to spend loads of money on wine, right? You know, as long as it's red flavor, it'll be fine. But I don't want to be cheap about it. I don't want to buy the cheapest bottle of wine, so I'm going to buy the second cheapest bottle of wine. Yeah. Any wine is good. Red wine is good. It's going to be nice. It's a restaurant. All their wine should be good, right? And obviously, restaurants know you do this, which is why the second cheapest bottle of wine on their menu is actually the cheapest bottle of wine. They're not stupid. That's kind of how I approached getting a guild for Hellfire Peninsula. And I came across a couple of different guilds, and I applied to a different couple of guilds. And obviously, like, I had criteria for joining a raid guild. They had to have a website so I could check them out, and they had to seem like a friendly bunch. And a couple of different guilds got back to me, but the one that I really liked had to fill out like an essay for Immortalis, Argent Dawn EU. It was like, you know, what is your class good at, blah, 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 all this. Send us a screenshot of your UI and shit like that. And I got a DM from raid leader of this guild, guy called Zel Kandor. And he was like, yeah, do you want to come on Discord and have a chat? And I think we'll, you know, we're really interested in getting you on the team. It wasn't Discord, it was Ventrilo. He had accidentally included my original application, which had been gone over by their healing lead, Pandacho. And at the bottom of my application, Pandacho had included a note saying, this is a very good application. So I was like, I fancy my chances here, right? I hopped on their Ventrilo server, which was terrible. Like, do you remember Ventrilo? Holy shit. And I got in the team. And the reason I got in the team is because one of my best friends now, Sem, who was the discipline priest in Immortalis and had been for years and years and years, was in a motorbike crash and broke both his hands just after Hellfire Citadel started. And that's why they were looking for a discipline priest, was because their discipline priest had broken both of his hands. And I joined this team, and they were a couple of bosses into Hellfire by the time I joined, and they were doing normal. and we were going through it, and it was the first time I'd ever raided, and I was shit. I was watching so many guides. Luckily, Disc was in a good place. Like, you wanted 1 Discipline Priest on every raid team, basically. Not 2, though. 2 would have been shit, because if you put a shield on someone, they got a debuff, which means, you know, you couldn't put a shield on them again for like 10 seconds. But that debuff was raid-wide, so it would stop any other Discipline Priest putting a shield on them as well. So it's pointless having 2 Discipline Priests. There's just literally no point. Eventually, Sem came back after his hands healed, right? But I was the Discipline Priest, and you could only have 1 Discipline Priest, so that motherfucker has been playing Holy from that day forth, and he is still our Holy Priest now. And the only reason he's not the Discipline Priest is because he was in a fucking motorbike crash, broke both his hands, and I stole his spot. And the thing is, you can easily have 2 Discipline Priests now. Like, you've been able to do that since Legion. But, you know, he's just got used to it now. He's like, nah, you're the disco, you're the disco. And I was shit as well. But luckily, I was getting quite good numbers on the healing logs, just because Disc was in a really good place, right? So I was able, like, Discipline being a good spec at the time allowed me to cover the cracks of my bad play, basically. And I watched a whole lot of guides, and we went through, and we did Heroic as well after that. I got my Moose, and we beat Heroic the week before they brought in the Moose for getting Heroic. So we had to come back and do it again, even though we were supposed to be on raid break, and everyone was in a really bad mood, because we had to go and fucking kill Archimond again, just so we could get this fucking Moose. And it was great, and I loved every moment of it. Like, Zell was a really hands-on raid leader, but a really nice guy, and we had issues. The whole raid team had issues with him, like, a little bit later on, but at that stage, everything was really happy, really good. We were having a really good time. He helped me out. He helped me learn my spec and get better, and he was a good guy, and we had a really great time. I loved raiding. I loved it so much. We were raiding 3 days a week at that point, and Evie would literally just sit there watching like TV and stuff on her laptop in the living room while I played and raided, and she just had no interest in WoD at all. She stopped playing for the entirety of WoD. She literally just stopped playing day 1 of WoD. Was like, no, I don't fancy this one. And then she started playing again day 1 of Legion. Oh, I remember some of the bosses as well. Some of the bosses in Hellfire, to this day, I do not understand the mechanics, despite the fact I did them in Heroic. I healed them. Progress. Heroic. I still don't understand some of the mechanics. But bosses that were fun in Hellfire. That bird boss where you had to throw the ball around. Fuck that. Fuck that one. The fucking first boss with all the mobs. Fuck that. Just because it's like the most boring boss of all time. What other ones cause us real problems? Oh, Gurtog. Okay, so the thing about Zell was, right? The thing about Zell was he was a great raid leader, but he kind of prided himself on coming up with tactics that were different from the tactics that you read in guides. Now, on the plus side to that, it meant that you weren't having to watch loads of videos to get the tactics, right? Because I hate that. It's like, oh, go away, watch a video, we'll come back after break, right? He used to pride himself on doing different tactics. Do you remember that boss? There's a bit where you went into like a different kind of like reality shit. Kilrog, thank you, Kilrog. So we all had to like stack around him, and then we'd have to run in a circle as one in a stack around him while the AoEs dropped behind us. Every other guild in the entire world just spread out. Every other guild in the entire world for that fight, they just spread out. Not us. No. We stacked together within like 5 yards of him so that melee would still hit him. And when the AoE started being dropped, we all had to run around him perfectly in time with each other, which is very difficult on fucking Ventrilo, by the way, because there's loads of lag. And it got to the stage where we were like, Zell, can we just spread out? We never ever spread out. I used to love pugging that fight just so I could fucking spread out and deal with the mechanic really easily. Manaroth was obviously fucking horrible. I hate it. I mean, that's a great fight, so I don't hate it, but it was horrible for us. And those are the fights I really remember from that raid. So we had a really good time, and it wasn't just raiding that I started doing. And, you know, I've been raiding with that team ever since. Now we go on holiday together. Here's my guild on holiday in Barcelona. This is like the second foreign holiday we took. We went to Greece the first year, and then we went to Barcelona the next year. And then last year we went to Center Parcs together. So these are some of the cool people in our guild, and we just hang out and we go on holiday together and shit. Now it's brilliant. What a fucking life! What a great life! Happy days. And so like the guild is one of the best things that ever happened to us. But it wasn't just the guild and raiding that was a big deal for me because of Fury of Hellfire. It's also when I started making YouTube videos because there wasn't much else to do. And I was so bored. Legion had been announced. I watched the Legion announcement at work, in between tours, on their work PC. I remember I walked out through reception once to go to a tour, and there's this guy called Sam, who was like 18 at the time, watching WoW PvP videos on his PC, when he should have been selling tickets. And I was like, oh, World of Warcraft. I play World of Warcraft. I raid in World of Warcraft. And he's like, oh, cool. I mythic raid in World of Warcraft. I was like, yeah, me too. And I thought, wow, do people really watch this much like WoW content on YouTube? And I'd been watching loads of it as well. And I was like, I reckon I could make some pretty funny videos on YouTube, you know? And so I spent 2 weeks writing my first YouTube video, which was top 10 things I'm doing before Legion. I spent 2 weeks writing this video and recording this video on like a shit microphone that I had, obviously, and like some free editing software called like Movie Maker or something. And it's a top 10, of course it is, yeah, because that's like all the videos that I was watching at the time as well. I made this entire video and I scrapped it. It was less funny than this.
Hello Internet, this is Taliesin of Taliesin and Evitel, Warlords of Draenor, for some, the Warcraft expansion equivalent of that time you accidentally called your girlfriend Mum. It's horrible, you wish it hadn't happened, you'd love to just forget about it and move on, but she heard it, you heard it, there's no getting away from it, it's part of your life now, deal with it. We have all done that, yeah? Because let's face it, you're a loser, Blizzard doesn't care about your opinion, you are not in the Legion Alpha. It means if you're going to play your favourite video game, and let's face it, you're going to have to find some things to do in Warcraft before it hits, which is where I come in. This is my top 10 video, things that I'm gonna do, and in some cases not gonna do, before Legion. Go, 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 go.
The go, there from the beginning.
Gold. Now, saying that earning gold is easy in Warlords is a bit like saying that Charlie Sheen quite likes drugs, or that this guy is a bit shit at hiding. Most level 100 characters in Warlords of Draenor are so rich they get begging letters from Oprah. PvP, or as it's otherwise known, Heroes of the Storm for dicks. Okay, I feel like I want to just clarify something at this point of the video, and that's that a lot of what I say in this video is a joke. Now, I love this game, and I love every person that plays it. If I come across as sometimes being a bit sarcastic or a little bit aggressive, I just want you to know, please don't be offended. It is just a joke. Except that bit about PvP, obviously, because that was true. Fuck you.
It's probably the best bit in the video, honestly. Yeah, face reveal first video as well. Jumping straight in with that. I made this video and I put it out and I thought, you know, this has got a good clickbaity title, right? I'm quite confident in this video. I think it's quite funny. Genuinely. It makes me cringe now, obviously, right? But I was like, yeah, I reckon I'm going to put this up. I uploaded the video. I subbed to the channel with my 3 different email addresses. And I was like, I reckon this video is going to have 1,000 views when I wake up. And I woke up the next morning, had 5 views. And that hurt, man. That hurt. But it did gain traction. And it eventually got to about 10,000 views, I think. Now, obviously, it's got more because people go back and watch my first video, right? I remember when we got to 1,000 subscribers. Here it is, our 1,000 subscriber message. So it was after the trolls during the Warcraft Director's Movie Cut video that we got to 1,000 subscribers. And I remember we were so thrilled when we had 1,000 subscribers. We felt like real YouTubers for the first time. We felt like we could actually tell people that, you know, we had a YouTube channel then. I remember how proud of ourselves we were that we had 1,000 subscribers. And we were walking to my auntie's house because it's my dad's birthday and they were coming up to London. We were going to hang out. And we were like, we're going to tell people about our YouTube channel. Yeah, the troll one was our first video that hit 100,000 views. You could monetize any video on YouTube in those days, but you had to opt in sort of thing. And we didn't monetize any of these videos. It just didn't seem like the right thing to do. I always said, oh, I'll start monetizing videos when we get videos that hit like 100,000 or 50,000 viewers. And this troll one hit 50,000 viewers. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's start monetizing then. And I actually remember there's actually like an apology bit in this video, the subscriber message video afterwards, where we apologize for putting ads on the channel. Like we were selling out or some shit, right? But yeah, that was a big video for us. The Who is the Final Boss video was a big video for us. And then the healers, the tanks, and the melee and ranged ranks were huge videos for us. I remember this video that took us over 10,000 subscribers. And by the time this series of videos was over, we were on like 30,000 subscribers. These were the videos that really kind of like launched us. Yeah, so Hellfire is always going to be like, it's always going to be a really important patch for me. It's always going to have really special memories for me. So it's funny to see it kind of become 7 years old. It means the channel's almost 7 years old.